Hey everybody, welcome to episode 100 of Making It. Oh wow. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Okay.
That's enough of that.
Okay.
I'm Bob Clagett here with David Picciuto.
How are you doing?
Yeah! And Jimmy Diresta.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. Well, if it's not obvious, we are in Boston at our Making It 100 event, and I just said thanks to everybody who's here, but everybody who's listening, I wanted to thank them as well, from all three of us, for making this show possible, for helping us continue to do this, and providing a place for us to be able to talk about what we do, which is kind of crazy. So thank you guys listening and everybody here as well. I guess we'll do our normal spiel.
Yeah.
What have you been working on, David?
So I'm working on, and if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen teaser pics of the shaker table that I'm working on. It's a traditional shaker table with non-traditional pocket hole joinery. But the kicker to this shaker table is I haven't made the top yet, but it's going to have an inlay of a hot dog for no reason other than to mess up a traditional woodworking piece with an inlay of a hot dog.
So how prepared are you for the backlash?
I'm starting right now to get prepared because,
all right.
That's not woodworking. And I'm going to use my laser cutter to make the wood inlay for all the pieces, which isn't woodworking, of course, because it involves a computer. But it's a fun project.
That's going to be amazing. That's going to be awesome. So, I mean, it's going to be like your new thing, right? Where like hot dogs are just going to be on all the pieces from now on? Is that
Maybe. What I want to do is
Maybe.
I want to do things that have like, this could be a traditional woodworking project, but then there's that like, why did he do that? Or that was awesome.
Left
or
turn.
The left turn.
Left turn.
Yeah, more left turns in my
I think
videos.
it has something a little bit to do with your wiener dog. Just a little
I
bit.
love wiener dogs. Oh my God, I love wiener dogs.
And can I say, you did that table the other day, and you said, I hate the way this table looked. It looked like a go-go dancer reaching up on the top shelf.
That's my favorite comment. Yeah.
Wow.
Anybody see the table he made with the 1960s brass legs? It looked like go-go boots standing on their tippy toes.
If you didn't see it, Jimmy's not making fun of the finished product. He's making fun of what I intended it to be, and I get the legs installed, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it, and I didn't know what to do because I've been talking about making this table for a couple weeks now, and I hit the point where I'm like, I don't like the way it looks. It's awful. I'm not happy with this, and so I just let it sit for a week, and I didn't put out a video last Thursday because of it. And then I was like, I'm just gonna make a bench out of it. I'll just cut the part that I hate off and make a bench, and then now I'm happy with it. So here we are.
Right on.
So I'm curious about that. Like, you weren't happy with it and you made the choice to do something different, but was there a point in there where you thought like, oh well, I'm just not happy with it, and this is one of those things that I'm just gonna like let go and move on? Or were you like motivated to fix it?
No, I was not motivated to fix it right away. I wanted to be like, I've committed to this thing. I usually try to finish what I commit to. And I thought, at first I'm just going to plow through and I'm going to pretend like I like it. And then like, that's not cool. That's not authentic, right? And
The trolls will get you.
The trolls will get me. And I just sat on it for a week, and which sometimes that's what you need to do is just, if you hit that wall, back away from it. And I'm like, oh, this is going to make a perfect bench. So, yeah. Yes. John said because you were sitting on it, which is a sitting bench. Thanks, John.
So did you throw those legs away? What'd you do with them?
I still have them. I don't know what to use them for. I don't know that I can find a good use for them. I just need to be a little creative with it, but
Whatever it is.
They reminded me of like, what do you call those, onion domes?
yeah.
From like Islamic architecture.
Yeah, it's that style.
Well, whatever you do with them, it has to have a hot dog on it.
Of course.
Cool. Jimmy, what have you been up to?
What am I working on? I've been starting a lot of projects, but unfortunately I haven't got a chance to complete them, and I talked about that in my last video blog. That chisel that I talked about with the bent end, I wasn't going to put it in the vlog, but I did, and I got a lot of people reminding me that last 2 inches is probably the most important part. I have this, if anybody hasn't seen it, this big chisel that's snapped off right at the end. I got it at the antique shop like that, really in a junk shop. And so I'm glad I put that up, and I was like, you're absolutely right. Every one of you people who commented that's the meat and potatoes of the chisel right there, and I'm about to throw it away. So I'll restore it, I'll bend it back and snap it off, of course, and then weld it back in and see what I could do. So I'm working on that. And
Barely hanging on. It looks like it's barely attached.
no, it's funny. My buddy picked it up and like I go, no. He goes, oh no, I just wanted to feel how strong it was. But no, it's on there really sturdily. Yeah, I thought it would snap off when I took it out of the rust. I put it in vinegar, but once I cleaned it off with the wire wheel and everything, it's on there. So I probably will see if I can bend it back, but maybe I don't know. Whatever I do won't be the right thing. So I'm just gonna.
That's the spirit. That's the spirit.
So maybe I'll braze it with brass so that it has a nice gold line to remind everybody broken.
You could just break it in half and then weld in a Leatherman container right in between the two pieces.
I'll break it in half and then throw it in the garbage on the video so everybody will be happy. No, but I'll restore that. And what else have I been working on? I'm making my friend Paul is a DJ, and he puts out album compilations of his mixes and his stuff. So I'm making an album box for this one compilation he made, which consists of like 3 albums, a photo album, and a magic wand, and a DVD. Long story. And this will all be in this box. So that's one of the things I'm working on. It's been a tough couple of weeks for me. I just haven't been able to get out. With some of my, Lucky's been sick, so he seems like he's doing better today, thankfully. And my plumbing issues. I didn't even tell anybody. I had the plumbing issue in my backyard on Thanksgiving evening, and then all day Friday. And then Saturday morning, I got a phone call from the landlord at my house that said, we're going to break your door down because your sink has been overflowing for 2 days. And that was in my apartment in New York City, and that is the truth. I didn't put it in the vlog because there's just too much depressing plumbing problems. I videotaped my kitchen with like stained floor and everything. All my wood in my apartment is all peeled up and like shaped like potato chips. So we fixed that, but that's just so that slowed me all down. But I'm glad we're here, and I'd like to thank Jeff Duro. Jeff Duro is the reason we have a podcast. And
that's right.
Before I forget it, so I just wrote a note. Jeff, in a Facebook comment 2 years ago, said, why don't you guys do a podcast together? And we were just casual acquaintances on the comment section. And then we talked. And I said, I don't know, you guys want to do it? And one of you guys said, let's do it. If it stinks, we just don't have to play it.
Yeah.
Bob was like, you guys want to? And I knew Bob really wanted to.
I mean, it's no big deal to me, but
It's like, what are we going to talk about? Is anybody going to care what we have to say?
Yeah.
And I was sitting in a Hooters, and right after, because we were just, this is true. We were driving.
There's photos.
Yeah, we were driving. Taylor and I were driving back from an emergency delivery in Nashville. I had to drive something to one of my clients. And we're driving back, and the phone call, our group phone call, was taking place right on 40. And I was driving to Taylor because I'm going to Hooters. I was like, all right. So we drove into a Hooters while we were talking on the phone. And then we sat down for dinner once we got off the phone. And I was like, I have this old name, Making It, which was the name of a show we pitched. And so I had a good sign that's in my shop. You've all seen the sign, Making It, made out of copper. I made that to pitch a television show, and we ended up changing the name of Making It to Hammered. So that was 10 years ago. And so I was like, we got the name Making It. I got a cool sign if you guys want. I think I even had makingit.com. And I sketched it on a napkin at Hooters, and I sent these guys pictures of it. And we were friends for like 10 minutes. And after all was said and done, we're like, yeah, let's just try that name. It sounds like it would work.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Big
Thank
thanks
you,
to
Jeff.
100
Jeff.
episodes later.
Yeah. That's amazing. So for me, I don't know if you were listening last week, but last week I said that I probably wasn't going to put a video out this week because I had some long-term projects on. I'd put out a video this week, and I probably won't put out a video next week. So, yeah. I ended up making a little advent calendar, Christmas tree, the lights up. Of course, it's Arduino powered. Everybody expected that from me. And I'm really happy with it, and it was a quick one-day thing that I thought if I put this out this week, that'll give me time to finish what I'm working on for next week. Turns out that wasn't actually the case. And so I'm going to skip next week. But I have 2 cool projects kind of in progress, and I'm shuffling them back and forth. I'll give it a hint. I like to keep things secret. But one of them is the materials, and this is for the Reclaimed Audio guys, a pair of crutches, a bed frame, and an exercise bike. So figure that out. So that's all I've used so far.
Somebody who's crippled and lazy and likes to ride a bike.
Wow, you got it. Thanks. So there's that one. And then the thing that's going to come up pretty soon, I've been working on a helmet from Star Wars. That's how I got into Fusion 360. We've been talking about Fusion a lot lately. And I decided this helmet from the new Star Wars movie that's coming out. Hey, there's a new Star Wars movie coming out, Jimmy, in case you didn't know.
I still got to see the first one.
Yeah, you do.
Catch up.
Anyway, so there's a design I really like from this new movie, and so I decided to use that as a way to learn Fusion 360. So for me, learning software like that works best when I have something that's not my design that I can look at, and if I get it wrong in the software, it's obvious that it's wrong, right? I have reference that is from every angle, and so
I was just talking to somebody about that, how just last night, I forget who we were talking in the lobby, you want to learn Fusion, pick an object and copy it.
Right.
Figure out how to copy it. And
Have a reason to use it. Have a reason to use it.
Yeah. So I spent probably 40 hours modeling that over a month. I mean, it was like, in between other things, I would model a little bit and everything. Really happy with the first endeavor into Fusion, and I highly suggest if anybody's interested in digital fabrication, just start there. Just get started with it. Anyway, so I got this whole thing modeled. Then I had to go through the process of figuring out how to cut, because it's like bigger than my head, right? It's obviously this big thing, and I wanted to 3D print the entire thing. So then I had to figure out how to chop this model up into pieces that would fit on my printers, and then I have to figure out how to reassemble them, and then hide the fact that it was reassembled.
The whole CAM aspect. Are you through the CAM yet? Taking your design and putting it through the paces of being manufactured.
Yeah, well, with 3D printing, it's a little bit different than taking CNC from Fusion, because you just kind of send your model out to your slicing software, so you don't have the same CAM operations.
So you don't have to
would.
make that many choices. I
Right.
understand.
Yeah. So it's a little bit easier from that aspect to go to production from it. But anyway, so I've spent the last several days. I got this thing assembled, and it's like a real helmet, super cool looking, and I'm a big nerd. I understand. But then it's like, I have this helmet, but it has print lines all over it, so it needs Bondo, which means sanding, which means more Bondo.
Have you
and then
tried
priming
acetone?
Acetone works for ABS plastic.
Oh, never mind.
I printed in PLA, which acetone doesn't do anything for. And there are some other ways to soften the build lines on a 3D print with a solvent, but with PLA plastic, it's easiest pretty much just to use a filler primer and then sand and just do it over and over. So that's where I'm at with that, and that finishing process is what's taking, So I'll probably end up skipping next week and try to get this out for the movie release, and I'm really excited about it. It's gonna be super cool.
What movie?
New Star Trek is coming out.
You've been posting teasers on your Patreon, so if you're not up,
That's right.
I like to make stuff Patreon supporter. You haven't seen this, but if you are,
Yeah.
it looks amazing.
Well, thanks. I've actually been doing teasers of both of these projects. Yeah.
What about happened to that really long-term project that double secret?
Don't stop. Nope. Just stop. Stop.
Just wondering.
Just stop. They know about a secret project that's been, and there's a few other people. It's like 2 years in, so I'm just not going to tell you about it. So
Never mind.
Yeah. Anyway, so what are we going to talk about?
I think we're going to quickly cover 2 subjects, and then we're going to take some questions, right?
Sure.
So we only came with one subject, and then we thought, well, let's add this other thing, which is community, right?
Yeah.
Let's start with that.
Okay.
And I wanted to hear, I don't know what angle we're taking on this. We're not really prepared.
Right,
We're
yeah.
just here. We're going to wing it, and we're going to talk about.
This is the way we do it, by the way. We get on Skype and we go, so what are we talking about today? And there's
This
like
happens.
2 minutes of silence, and then somebody goes, well, I got this email.
Text messages while what we think the other one's thinking.
So basically, community is a huge part of what we do, the three of us, like our careers, right? A lot of that is built around community. And so I think it would be super easy for us to talk about YouTube as a community, but I think that's the low-hanging fruit. That's the easy part. I think talking a level up about communities and what value they bring and your place in the community, I think is maybe a little broader and maybe a little more interesting and abstract. Mm-hmm. So as a person who makes something, no matter what it is, if you're like an artist or a craftsperson or something, generally you kind of work alone. You have a vision, and to execute that vision, you are the one who can really get it out. Even if you have like other people helping you, you're the one with the vision. You're the one that has to get that thing out, and that can be super productive. It can also be extremely lonely, and it can be extremely like you just don't have all the things that you need to get your vision out a lot of times. And that's where I think the most basic usefulness of a community can come in, is because you have support. And I think, the YouTube thing is an easy way for us to talk about this because it's where we live. But the support that we get, or at least I'll speak for myself, I don't want to speak to these guys. The support that I get from the community is not just support in that, like, Bob, I'm gonna pat you on the back. You're really good at what you do. That's great. Good job. Neat. Nice shirt. It's not that, right? That stuff is nice, and that makes me feel good. But the support is the, what you're doing is changing something. What you're doing is getting to the core of your goal. What you're doing is making an impact on people. That's support, because that's somebody coming along and saying, like, I'm letting you know that what you're trying to do is actually working. Not good job, Bob, not, all that stuff. It's working, so keep it up. For me, that's what support is. And so the comments on YouTube videos where somebody says, like, this is awesome, I'm gonna make this with my kid this weekend. Oh, yeah. That's support. That's saying what you did made an impact on me, and now it's gonna like translate into an action, and whether that's like exactly what I planned or what I did, or they're just going to spend more time with their kid, or whatever the case may be, they're letting me know that what I did is having an effect outward past me. And so and you can't get that feedback if you're by yourself, right? I can make the most beautiful, most complicated thing in the world in a room by myself, zero impact at all. So when I think about communities, I think about the way that process that I just described happens. But the cool thing about it is not like me on the top and everybody in the community is down. Well, this is a bad example because I'm actually higher than all of you right now. But it's not this, right? It's not me being on a taller table than you guys and everybody going like, hey, you made a difference, whatever. It's you guys. It's all of you sitting at the same level in the same type of chairs, doing the same type of work, sitting next to each other saying, you're making a difference. You affected me in some way. It's like these connections and all these friendships that are growing up around here.
Yeah, there's a huge network. There's a big love fest today, of course, but the network that the YouTube community has provided each and every one of us is this unbelievable learning experience. But it gives me the ability to, like, instead of ignoring CNC because I just don't know anybody that does it, or I have no connection to it, or I don't feel like going back to class, I can be in this community and go check out CNC NYC. I could sit here and talk to Tony about some very specific details. That's what's great about this community. I could talk to Rory May, who's here, everybody. Dirty Smith. Rory May is in the house. Hey. And Rory, although I never really done much blacksmithing in the true sense of the word, I can discuss and watch and see how certain things are done, and I could pick up the phone and we could talk. So that's one thing that I love about this community. And I appreciate the accolades I get, but I learn just as much from everybody else as people might learn from me, on many levels.
Yeah. My ultimate goal is to try to teach creativity, which I don't know how to do yet, but I've always felt anybody can be creative. You just have to put in the time and you have to put in the effort. And so when somebody watches my videos or downloads my plans, I ultimately want them to take that and make it their own and do their own thing. And when they do that, that is amazingly awesome. The biggest compliment I can possibly get is when some of you have come up and like, look at this thing. I made this from your video. This is like, that blows my mind that you made something that I've made that, like, I cannot express how awesome that makes me feel.
Yeah. And I don't make plans, and not yet. My buddy, who's an amazing 3D artist, has been making some plans of my projects. I've talked about this before. But what's cool, too, is because I don't make plans and people actually extrapolate the information, I see these, like, oddly weird versions of the things I made because they don't have anything to go by except for the video, and it's great to see that determination to figure it out from just still images.
Sure. And so, the effect of communities in that way is really cool because you can see the result of what you're doing, and you get supporting what you're doing. But I think it also, being a part of something bigger than yourself can do a whole lot for you as, personal growth stuff, right? So when you have the chance to, I guess there's two positions to be in here. One is what I was just talking about, where you're the person who does a thing and gets feedback on it. That feedback is beneficial, and it promotes what you're doing to continue to do it. The other person is that other thing, where they are the consumer and the feedbacker. That's not a word. But the person that consumes the thing, processes it, and figures out how it applies to them, or what impact it made or whatever, and turns around and makes an impact themselves on the original poster, or I don't know. I don't have good words for this stuff. This particular thing is kind of abstract.
Use your words.
Yeah. Anyway, the point being that there's multiple positions in a community. It's not all that everybody is looking for support from everybody else. A community is an opportunity for you to be supportive of other people, which is not natural for a lot of us.
Yeah.
It's natural for us to think about ourselves and to get to our goal and to do our thing and meet our needs and all that stuff. It's not really natural to look around and see who needs support, and how can I help by saying one little thing, or how can I whatever.
There have been times where I made movies that I wasn't proud of, and I didn't like the net result, but I was like, you know what, somebody will get something out of this,
right?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And then somebody says, this is my favorite video. I'm like, this video sucks, but I'm glad you like it. I don't say that. That's what I say on the inside.
Yeah. But a good example of that is we were setting up here yesterday, and all of these people who are our friends were here for no other reason than to help. They weren't getting anything out of it. They weren't getting the pat on the back, you're doing a great job thing. They were here saying, what can we do to help you make this easier? That's amazing. And so we have the opportunity to be multiple places within a community, and that's amazing. And that's not specific to the community. I'm hogging the conversation here. I don't mean to do that. But one thing I really like about YouTube as a platform is that I see it as a community of communities.
Sure. I mean, I'm in 5 communities.
Right. You're a part of a bunch of different groups of people that you have something in common with. I started YouTube as a musician, and so I got to know a bunch of other people who made music on video. And I think that's when I realized that it's not cat videos. It's not just cat videos. There's cat video people, and then there's musicians, and then there's makers, and then there's people who cook, and there's people who talk about this, and people who open boxes of toys and whatever. So it's a community of communities. And
the
I think
unboxing community is weird. Sorry.
Yeah, we're going to leave that one alone.
There's two.
Is any unboxers here?
Somebody's like, that's it, I'm out.
So we've been talking about the online community, but there's also the community in your area. And there's all these maker spaces popping up. Your local craft stores, your local Home Depots, your local woodcraft and rockler stores, they have these meetups on the weekends. And that's a great place to actually meet face to face with some other makers. I know from my own personal experience, I basically got started woodworking from YouTube. I learned a lot from YouTube and the Wood Whisperer and Steve. But when I actually found somebody that taught woodworking in my area, and I took a 6-week class with this guy, hands-on, face-to-face, somebody else there to solve my problems as they happen, I learned so much from that. So I'm not saying stop watching YouTube, but I'm saying try to find people that you can you can relate to in your area by going to these meetups and these tool demos or whatever. And you'll be surprised on how many people, like-minded people, you'll find right in your area.
Yeah, and the online stuff, like you said, is great, and it's virtual, and it's distributed, but it causes stuff like this, right? Look at how many people are in this room physically together, getting hugs from Lutz, because of the virtual, how we all got connected or whatever. And there are super real friendships that happen in real life, and that's maybe a different thing than what you were talking about, but they wouldn't happen otherwise, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Like Josh Price, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. Josh Price, we got to know each other a little bit online, and he lives a couple hours from me or something, and has come up to my house a couple of times. Our kids know each other. We've hung out a little bit. And the last time he came up, I'm not going to give the details, but last time he came up, I was dealing with some stuff that has nothing to do with YouTube, just personal stuff, right? He has some experience with that stuff. And I got to sit down with him at lunch and like have a therapy session with a guy who has been through stuff that I have not been through before. And it was helpful. That came from a podcast and YouTube videos and being a part of another community that was kind of unrelated to that specific topic. And when I don't have, I'm not going anywhere with that, except that it blows my mind that being a part of a community can lead to so much other stuff that's not that community.
I could talk to that point a little bit. People always say to me, is it weird when people come up to you and they want to know? And I'm like, no, honestly, it's not, because it's like we're all on this is going to be a weird analogy. We're all like in a dating community online, and we're all through all the questions already. And we're all we're on like our 500th email, but we haven't met yet. And when we meet, it's like, oh, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Because we're all in this community. And it's, so when people are like, is it funny when you meet somebody? I'm like, no, because we're all like we're on the same lily pad. So it's like, oh, hey. It's like if I walked into, I don't know, I can't even think of a good example of something I don't do, screenwriting. I'd be like, oh, hey, like, what do you do? What did you go? I'm like, I don't know, I make stuff. I don't write anything. Can't even write an email. So that might seem weird. But since we all make stuff, we all grew up playing in the garage, we're all experimenting with this and that. And the other thing, all that pretense is like out of the way. And it's just like, hey man, I like when you touched that, made that wooden thing. And I'm like, that was fun. Wasn't it fun? That was great. Whatever. Yeah. Well, when I do it this way. Oh, that's a really great thing. I'll remember that next time. So all that's out of the way. Like when I meet everybody here today that I haven't met yet.
So that's community.
Yeah.
And we might ask this community in here to help us maybe clean up a little bit when we're done. And
the big setup for that.
Because if you do, yes, that's going to give us a little bit more time for Q&A. We're going to quickly talk about...
Because Tim is here, we all have to take that cardboard and bring each one of the pieces home with us.
Yeah.
Throw it out at home. Don't throw it out here.
Or just go put it in Tim's truck.
So quickly talk about subject number 2, which is attitude. And I'll get this started by saying I'm a different person than I was probably 3 years ago, where I grew up in this environment, this small town environment where like everything sucks. You're not going to get anywhere, just do, I hate everything. Screw the government, screw this, screw that. And I just kind of grew up and thinking everything does suck. And then I've read a few books and watched some videos. And about 3 years ago, I had this total like mindset change where I'm like, one of the books that I read, I've talked about it before, but it was just like, stop complaining for 2 weeks. Don't complain about anything for 2 weeks. And then during this 2 week period, so many positive things happened to me. And whether it's just a coincidence or not, I don't care, but it changed my life. And I tried to be a positive person since then. And instead of complaining, I try to find the good thing and that terrible thing that happened.
I hate complainers. I really do. I mean, people that are around me know, like, if you're going to complain about something, just go smoke a cigarette or something.
Take it elsewhere. And whether you think not complaining and just having a positive attitude can affect, I really believe in law of attraction. Whether you believe that or not, it doesn't matter, because if you are a positive person and you have a good attitude about things, more people are going to like you because you're friendly, you're fun to be around. Yeah. And since I've had this change, I think I've been a better YouTuber, a better maker, a better husband, a better friend, and I really am totally into positive energy and just a good attitude.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that your attitude decides the future. Like, here's a good example. We talked about the Glowforge before. which is like a laser. I'm just going to take it to something we know, right? It's a laser engraver that was like one of the biggest crowdfunding campaigns ever, whatever, huge amount of money.
$175 billion.
So yeah, somewhere around
Actual
that,
number.
somewhere around there. And I was totally interested. I paid for it, right? And then they were like, it's going to be a year before you get it, which is, it's a crowdfunding thing. Fine. Year goes by. They send out an email. Oh, it's going to be like 3 more months. 3 more months go by. I think this has happened twice or so. Anyway, December
Next
1st,
dimension.
2 days ago, on December 1st, they sent out another email saying instead of shipping this month, it's going to ship between May and August.
No
Okay?
way.
So this is several $1,000.
I'm glad I didn't pay for it. I was
This
waiting
is-
for my free one.
This is several $1,000s that I paid back then that is floating somewhere that I haven't, I mean, I can cancel it or whatever.
hope
But
they
I
kept that money
decided,
somewhere.
at the beginning when I was pushing the button to pay for the thing, I'm investing in something that I think will be good, not something that I think I will get in December. I decided that my attitude toward that particular product was it's going to be really good. And that's not attached to a time, And so I decided at that point how I was going to react to it whenever it happens. And so when they announced the first delay, whatever, it's no big deal. When they announced this delay the other day, I actually got emails from like 4 or 5 people the morning of saying, do you think it's going to get delayed again? Are you going to bail? I don't know why people care what I'm going to do about it, but I was like, no, it gets delayed, big deal. It's still going to be an awesome laser. And the reason that it's delayed is because they want it to be awesome, not to hit a deadline. All that to say, I decided how I was going to react to this thing, whether I got it or not when I thought so, right?
I'm picturing like DMV. Everybody like waiting for their number to come up and it doesn't come up and they're like,
yeah.
that's what everyone just did when they got that email.
Yeah, they did.
Except for Bob.
And there's, and you can see how people react to it by, going to the forums. You can see the people that are like, oh, I just wanted it by December, and they throw a fit about it or whatever. Everybody's
What's going to
entitled
happen
their
now
own
is someone's
thing.
going to come out with a better technology. Somebody that's like backdoor it at the factory and they're going to come out with a better
Well,
version faster.
That's a possibility. But my point
You're saying
being
it's
is
been
like I
extremely
decided my attitude towards it was that I'm willing to wait for something good.
You could have 2 different reactions. You could be, okay, I'm going to cancel my order, get my money back or whatever. Or you could say, hey, you know what? This machine just doesn't make pieces on its own. Maybe I'll take this time to actually learn some of the software that I need to design things.
Yeah.
Maybe I can come up with some cool ideas. So when I do have it, I'm all ready to go.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's-
Yes. So go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. You finish.
I was going to say, deciding ahead of time how you're going to react gives you a lot more freedom to react, right? It's not going to necessarily be this gut reaction of like, oh, I'm really mad because I had a bad day today and I also found out that the Glowforge is delayed. If you've decided ahead of time that it's not really that big of a deal and you're going to react in a certain way, you can still have a bad day without it affecting like your attitude towards this particular thing. Maybe the Glowforge is a bad example of.
But it comes with maturity. Like you bring up something that reminds me of a point. It comes with maturity. You make a decision. You're like, okay, I'm going to get into this pool to learn this new technology. It's an example I could relate to. And regardless of what happens, I'm going to take every hurdle, try and absorb it, process it, learn from it, move on, all towards the goal of getting towards the final learning experience of using a software. For instance, the ShopBot that I got. I got that totally like Lutz, the way you are right now, like I have no idea what to do. But I was like, let me confront this, because every time I go to make a fair, there's a 10-year-old whipping up something that I should be doing. And so I mean that's the beginning for me at the very beginning, and I know Tim's going through it now, and I see Tim's already making some cool parts. The idea is like I just said, no matter what comes my way, I'm just going to try and confront it, deal with it, and then go past it. Instead of, when I was 15, I would have, broke it and said, forget it. But, it comes with maturity, the idea of saying, okay, I'm at DMV, I'm just going to wait for my number to come up no matter what happens. The worst case scenario, I get my car registered tomorrow. So.
Yeah, and you could take that and you can apply it to your home life. You could be, if your spouse comes home and says, "Hey, I lost my job today," don't get upset and panic. Take that opportunity. Like, what can we do to make our lives better now?
It's funny. I said that a friend of mine lost his job a couple weeks ago, and I said, right now is the most pivotal point in your life. I said, now you can be the ballerina you've always wanted to be.
That's
to
funny.
a 55-year-old man because I don't want to be a ballerina. It's like, it's an example. What is it you really want to be? He didn't know.
Not a ballerina. Yeah, I mean, I think, you can apply it to your projects as well. Like if you're making something and you've decided ahead of time, like I want to make something good or I want to make a thing that serves a certain purpose and decide like that's your attitude towards it, then it doesn't matter if like something fails halfway through. You just have to find a different way to get to your end, but
Legs off the bench.
Exactly. Put a hot dog on it, right? Yeah. But I mean, if you decide like I'm going to make a perfect thing and you do anything in the process that makes it not a perfect thing, you're done. You can't come back from that, right? You can't fix it. But if you decided that like I want to make it serve this purpose or I want it to look at least this good or whatever, you can work around it. I mean, that's kind of what you were saying.
You reminded me, somebody earlier today said, when do I decide it's time to sell something? Is that person still here? Is it make it perfect? You said, should it be perfect before I begin to sell it? And I could use the examples. This kind of pertains to what we're talking about. When I pre-sold 100 ice picks, I was like, oh my God, I just pre-sold 100 ice picks. I don't even know how to mass produce these things. The sheath doesn't even stay on the one I made for myself for the last 2 years. How am I going to like sell them and expect them to be like a quality product? And so I was like, don't panic, you'll figure it out. I made all the ice picks, I made all the sheaths. I still didn't know how to keep them stuck on. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I could put a spring in there. That's going to waste time. But I was like, you know what? The delivery date is over there. And I'm here, and there's still time in between. And then I came up with this little method of putting a dink in it and a slit, and so it's kind of spring-loaded. You wouldn't think of brass being spring-loaded, but it is a little spring-loaded. And that was my solution to that problem. But then that was the first 100, and then I thought I was never going to make them again. And then I sold the second. Now I'm up to like 12 or 1,300 individual ones at 100 per batch. But each time I make it, it gets better and different and better and different. And the idea is, okay, this next 100 I make, what little tiny improvement can I make that is make my job slightly easier and make it a little bit more sexier of an object? And so I'm going through that, and that's just an example. Whereas if I waited to get it perfect, I would have never said sell them because I wouldn't have tried to pre-sell them. I wouldn't have backed myself into the corner. So the point is that you just gotta go for it and just be optimistic that you're going to have a solution or that you're going to sell. So whatever it is you're going to sell, don't wait till it's perfect. It'll always keep evolving. Just think in terms of every single year they make a new car for the last 100 years. They don't just keep selling the Model T from 1920.
Can you imagine like what Jimmy's life would be like if he had a bad attitude? Like with all the sewage he has to deal with in all the different places?
I turned to Taylor and I go, what have I done wrong in another life that now 3 locations that I spend most of my time, I have sewer backups.
That's
What have I
disgusting.
done wrong in another life? But it's not me. Everything I make goes away. It's everybody else's.
Anyway, moving on.
Oh man.
No, like I said, it's just the sewer comes back up.
Okay, anyway. Yeah. So, do we have anything else on?
But I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do some questions. We have about 45 minutes, so we have lots of question time.
good.
If there are questions, I don't know if there's that many, but anybody got one? Yes.
What is your biggest purchase for buyer's remorse?
We'll repeat the questions every time. What is your biggest purchase, buyer's remorse for a machine?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, I thought all 3 of us. I was waiting for somebody else to answer. Well, I'll tell you what. When I first bought my ShopBot, I'm very daring with credit cards, and I was like, lay down the credit card, $7,500, I'll pay it off. It came in, I didn't know how to use it. I kept breaking bits, and the software, it was literally like a ghost in the machine. I go to the thing, I'd leave it alone in the room, and I come back, and it looked like a 10-year-old scribbled on it with a crayon. Then it would just go, snap. And I'm like, this is exactly why I never wanted to make this purchase, because this is technology and me just don't get along. That was when I had a bad attitude. And I just kept trying, and it wasn't working, and I kept trying, it wasn't working, and then I called ShopBot, and they're like, well, if you change the motherboard, I go, dude, I don't even know how to write an email, so you expected me to change the motherboard on this thing? And then another time, the screw snapped. It's a screw-driven servo, and the screw broke. I was in the other room, and I hear the thing going, but it wasn't hearing anything cutting, and I looked in, and the thing is just going, and the threaded rod was snapped. And so I was really at the end of my rope, and I really was going to I call him like, I just want my money back. I don't know how you're going to get this 300-pound machine back to North Carolina, but I don't want it anymore. Like, whoa, bring it to Maker Faire, which coincidentally the timing was such that it was in a few weeks. I brought it to Maker Faire. They fixed it. They covered their payment, they covered their guarantee and whatever else, and they fixed it. And then I spent a few minutes with someone, they taught me the software, and so I would literally like went 180 from not wanting it to being happy. So for those few months, it was very regrettable. But since then, as far as anything else I regret, once in a while I regret buying something from Harbor Freight. But it's not that big of a commitment, because the $20 sander that just decides to not turn on one day, you're like, whatever, I bought $30 worth of food yesterday for lunch, doesn't matter.
For me, I think it's probably the first 3D printer I had. It was the brand was Delta Printer, and I'm not saying anything bad about them because I actually have their new product.
Because I
Actually,
do
all
too.
three of us do.
Got mine
But it was a
yesterday.
kit, and I want to point this out because it was a kit, and so I had a certain expectation of what a 3D printer will do, not really factoring in the fact that I had to put the machine together and there's like me involved, right? And so that makes it not do what it's supposed to do. And so I could just never get this printer to actually act like it was supposed to act and print at the quality it was supposed to, where other people could. And that taught me a lot about me more than the product itself. It taught me that I like tools to work as tools, not as projects. And so for me personally, I just decided at that point that like no more kit tools. You know, if I'm going to spend the money on something, it needs to be something that I can immediately turn into production, something I can immediately use.
That's how I think.
Yeah, so it was definitely less about the product and more just about me kind of figuring out what I should be buying and what I shouldn't be.
Just to that note, when I got my first X-Carve, it sat there for nearly a year. Me and David Welder started putting it together, and we had no idea what we were doing. We were both like groveling the whole time, like, and then I got some teenage interns, and they put it together in one afternoon. They had a good attitude.
Callbacks. So there's two tools that I've bought because I thought I needed and then ended up selling. One was the scroll saw. I'm like, woodworkers need a scroll saw. So I bought one. And the model that I bought, they didn't make anymore. So I waited for Craigslist until that particular model showed up. And then it sat there for like a year and a half. I'm like, I've only used this thing one time. So I sold it. And then the other big purchase was a huge Powermatic joiner. And I use it like once or twice a year, and a lot of those same tasks could have been done with another machine. And so I recently sold my joiner for, well, at that time I needed money, but I also needed the floor space. And I've learned a lesson, and a lot of one of the biggest mistakes when you get started in a new hobby is you think you need all the tools right away. You don't. What you need is the tools to complete the projects that you have in mind. So start with a project, buy the tools to complete that project. Don't buy the tools just because you see other people, makers, woodworkers, whatever, with those tools.
Point. Who's next? Matt.
Enemies.
You can repeat that because I didn't hear all of it.
Okay. Marry, kiss, kill with the Dusty Life guys. I want to marry Kyle Toth.
Yeah, I think I would want to marry Kyle as well.
And that's that dude, what he does is so inspiring and so sexy and just
I just think he's nice. That's why I wanted it. But yeah.
I'd like to sit down and have dinner with that guy.
There you go, tonight. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. Okay.
Where's Kyle at?
He's right there.
Hey, buddy. You look good. You look good in that leopard print shirt.
Hey, buddy.
Can I tell a story? I don't know if I've ever told the story about the... Okay, so last time I saw Toth, we were in Kansas City, and we were at this place, like a get-together of a bunch of people, and he came up and he was like, dude, I had a dream about you. You remember this? Okay, so again, he says, I had a dream about you, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, I don't. You may remind
Bob
me if I'm
took
getting
one
it
step
correctly.
back.
He said you were on a morning show, right? Yeah. So I was on a morning show, and I'm like, oh, that's funny, haha. You know, we kind of laughed it off and went on. And then maybe 6 months later or something like that, one of my videos got picked up by Good Morning America and was on the thing. And I actually wasn't on there, but I sent it to him. I was just like, whoa, dude, Kyle Dove, this psychic. Anyway.
Also, I would marry the two other guys too. It's just Kyle. He's a good-looking
Well,
dude.
see, okay,
man.
you know, yeah.
And I've seen
there's
him
Kyle.
naked.
Brian's got the awesome floppy hair.
Already.
Sean's got the awesome thick beard. I don't know. Yeah, they're good-looking guys.
Next question.
Next question. Thank you.
Yes, Jesse.
I want to know what set of goals or ambitions brought you
What current set of goals? What brought me to where I am, and this is going to sound like a joke, but it's true, living in Manhattan. If you could make it there, you could make it anywhere. And every year I kept saying, I made it this far, I can keep going. I can just improvise, ask the right questions, get the right clients, and pay my bills for one more year. And one thing led to another, and so that's honestly, like, living in Manhattan was definitely a survival skill development process. And I basically always had the attitude of, like, one day I'll be the artist that doesn't have to clean and fix floors in a bar or build things I don't want to build, but this is just a path to get to where I want to go. And then after a couple of run-ins with TV shows, got me to YouTube, and now YouTube is basically the dumping ground for every one of my disciplines to come out in a positive light. So that's just keep putting one foot in front of the other, knowing that one day I'll be able to be the artist that I feel is brewing within.
That doesn't have to clean up his own sewage.
That's probably never going to go away. But did you see me in my muck boots up to my knees 2 days ago?
That's a tough question. I think, like, my goal for getting where I am now has a lot, maybe not 100%, but it has a lot to do with my family. I have 4 kids. My wife, who's here and awesomely helpful over there, Jenny.
He's embarrassed.
Being able to provide for them is obviously about the most important thing I could do, right? Is making sure that these kids survive and turn out to be decent. And I was telling somebody, I don't know where he was, but I was telling somebody this just a few minutes ago. He's going to be a dad soon, and was asking how to balance stuff. And I'm a firm believer that, like, to be the best husband you can be, to be the best dad you can be, to be the best friend or whatever the case may be, to be the best that you can be for someone else, you also have to take a certain amount of yourself and a certain amount of your time and dedicate it to, like, pour back into yourself, right? To make you better, to scratch the itches that you have so that you can be your best for other people, right? And in the case of my family, part of this whole thing is, well, the reason I started doing YouTube was actually to be able to justify that time that, like, I need to be doing something with my hands so that I'm okay up here. I also need to be able to justify that time because it's time away from my family, but it's also time that's improving me for my family. So it's this whole kind of weird circle of, you know, I'm doing this stuff to be better for them so that I can just be a better dad and better husband. So I think that's a big part of why I started doing this, and then it turned into, like, a business and a real job and something I love doing, and now it's bigger, and now I'm like, wow, I can support my family. I can not only be okay for them, I can be, like, provide for them. And so I think that was, like, the big goal for getting where I am. Goal going forward, actually, this is in between those two questions. I wish I could show you guys this video that our kids are at home with a babysitter right now, and she sent a video of my second son, Hawk, who's like the maker in my family. I might start crying for this. Sent me a video of him saying, "Hi, I'm Hawk, and I like to make stuff." And he made a Nerf gun. He's 6. Took a Nerf gun, duct taped a piece of string to the end of the Nerf gun, and then tied the other end of the string to the gun so he could shoot it and then pull it back to him. And he made a video showing how it worked, and he was like, "Hey, check out my other videos." That's
Making me cry.
the future is. I want more of that.
Good. Very good.
When Ben was up on stage, somebody asked him where he would be 5 years from now, and his answer just blew me away and made me feel so much better about myself, because I don't have a 5-year plan. I have a plan for next week, right? There are things in place to make sure that my business just doesn't go away next week, but I try to keep myself very open to changes, and I'm ready to pivot at any time. And a lot of these things that help me make money, I don't have control over, and they could go away at any time. And that's YouTube, or my server could go down and I could stop. I wouldn't be able to sell plans or books or whatever. And so I don't like to think too far ahead. And like Jimmy said, one foot in front of the other. Let's take care of now. And if I
Fix
keep
the clog.
fix your clog, and if you have good intentions, and you are making smart business moves, or even if it's just a hobby for you, if you're making smart moves, you're going to always find yourself moving forward. So I don't like to think too far ahead.
Point. Next question.
Anybody have a question?
Over here.
How do I grow my arm hair? I can't see. Who's saying that question? I can only hear. Oh, hi. How do I grow my arm hair back? I hold my breath and I push really hard. Like Nick Offerman says, it will grow back by tomorrow morning. No, that's why I just space out my, you can always tell what I've been testing, sharpening. I spread out my knife videos far enough.
That's why.
And then, like, the reason I never use 360 cameras, because if I go to use a 360 camera in a knife video, you'll see all the attempts on the other arm. And you could like zoom in and see how it wasn't as sharp as it needed to be for the final take.
Over here.
It's a good question. My plasma CNC, I got a 4x4 table from Torchmate in Lincoln, and I don't really have the space for it, but I have it in my container, and I'm getting electric to that area. That's currently taking place. I'm getting electric installed. I started laying out some ideas for package design, but in steel. So I could cut out a package design layout, and then I could potentially sell it or give it to somebody, and then they could take it home and fold it up and weld it into a box or a stool or a seat. So that's really, I've been making some sketches of simple welding projects. You get them home, you bend them on the perforations, you weld them where they get welded, and then it's kind of like a DIY, but combined with IKEA concepts of being able to mail stuff flat.
You could also use, this is not your idea that you were talking about, but you could also use that same thing as a fixture to fold packaging. So if you could make like a folded metal fixture to fold a paper box around, like a jig to make,
Yep. So, I mean, I probably will make like apple boxes in steel. A couple of ideas. I have a few ideas that'll basically like, and then take it out and then bend it up and weld it, and then be done. You do the at home.
That should be on the package. You do that.
It's really like frying bacon.
Yeah.
That's a good welding.
What's the guy from Police Academy?
Oh, Michael Winslow. Yeah. Jimmy Diresta, the Michael Winslow of YouTube. All right, who's next? Right here.
That's how we started, really. That's kind of how we started around the same time as our very first thing. And
the question was, have we ever thought about doing a collaboration? Sorry.
right, yeah. When we tried that, it didn't work as of now. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen, because we do talk about it, but each one of our lives is so busy.
Bob started it.
We're all so busy. We really are all so busy. So one of us started the project, even though he didn't have a lot of time to, and he put it in the mail, and he sent it to one of the other guys.
Wait,
I got the-
I didn't get it.
I sent it to
I
him.
didn't get anything in
That's
the
right.
mail.
I sent it to him.
I'm using it for storage. I'm storing things in it right now.
And then like a while later, I was like, man, just burn it. Just like, we'll come up with something else. Yeah, that was the original idea. I was going to start, did we come up with an
We
idea
can do
for
something
it?
in Fusion now. We can actually all be on the same thing.
I think the idea is we each start a new project, and like I think
Move it
mine
over
was going to
one.
be a lamp, and I'll
That's
do
right.
step 1, and then I'll send it to you, and it's your responsibility to come up with what step 2 is and step 3 and so on.
We were
So
on
we'd end
all
up
three.
with 9.
Yeah,
processes.
Yeah. Maybe someday. I don't know. It is actually really hard for us to coordinate. It's amazing that we actually get together once a week to record a podcast.
We don't talk at all until 3 minutes before 4 o'clock, and it's like, are we doing this now? Because I have 700 other things to do. No, see you at 4. I'm like, okay. Shit.
And we're done like recording. We're like, okay, cool. See you later. Bye. Yeah, bye.
All right.
I think it'd be cool though. I think the hard thing for us is like shipping stuff. I think that's a general problem with collaboration stuff for makers is like
Never get to the mailbox. I mean, to the post office.
It's
ever.
hard to ship parts, or it's hard to like be on the same page about vision, about what it is you're doing. Or also, I mean, there's so much overlap in our skill sets. I mean, Jimmy's in his own like world or whatever, but there's a lot of overlap. So it's like if we decided to do something that was like wood and metal and something else, who does what? Like, how do we decide where's the, there's just like stuff to it. So.
We had that. You had the idea of, I don't know, do we want to announce it?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't remember what you're talking about. The what?
The chessboard. We were
Go ahead and
opening
say
up
it.
a
I don't
chessboard.
know.
Jimmy had the idea of like, let's all come up with a chessboard, but make it like totally unique. But we never did.
Oh, yeah, well, that was an old project. Well, it is a project one of my teacher at School of Visual Arts gives out, where everybody gets to make their own chessboard. And Tim did it. He made the recycled chessboard. And the idea of just making a chessboard out of, a themed chessboard. Then I had the idea, which I'm going to announce now, you guys are going to push us to do it. Each one of us gets a chopstick, and we have to make something out of the chopstick. And I called it the Chopstick Challenge. It was sort of a joke based off of the 2x4 challenge. It's just a complete opposite. So we each get a chopstick, and we have to make something out of it. You can make like a little tiny Titanic this big out of all those splinters based off of the toothpick guy I saw in Rochester.
Yeah. So if you have an idea for collaboration, send it to us. Maybe we'll try to figure it out. It would be cool.
We each get one toothpick.
Oh, great.
I love that. Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
Make a Mecca. I got. I haven't been talking about it as much, just because I kind of put my foot in my mouth over the last couple of years, kind of painting myself into unaffordable corners. And I got several $1,000s from the fundraiser, and I had an architect do a $6,000 drawing, and I looked at it and I was like, I can't afford that. And I can barely afford the drawing, but with the money I got, I spent. And so we took a step back. I tried to buy a piece of property in the area, too much money, can't get financing. Mortgage, commercial mortgage is different than a regular mortgage. It's like, how do people live? I don't understand it. So I just took a step back. I own the property. I contacted a builder. I talked to David, the Mexican guy who was in one of my videos previously. Between him and this other builder I have, we're going to come up with something in the spring. So I got some pricing, and it's much more within reach. It's like whenever we get down a project and you start thinking like you can't really see the vision, but you just keep walking towards the light, even though the light is dimming. Just keep walking there. The light is starting to go bright again. And then, of course, once that's up and going, I will certainly have these guys and every other YouTuber that I admire and learn from there as various schedules come and go. So, yep.
Back. How difficult was how hard was it for us to leave
This has
our day
always
jobs?
been my day job, so I can't answer this question. Honestly, I mean, that sounds like a joke, but it's true. I've always been making things my whole life, thankfully, with various levels of survivability of the income, but you guys are on your own.
One day, Kelly said, she's over here. She said, "Can you make a living from YouTube?" And I was like, "Yes!" And then I put her in my 2 weeks. It was like,
Are you sure? I already said yes.
I've always wanted to work for myself for like the past 15 years. I'm like, I thought for a while I was going to be a web developer or a graphic designer, just like freelance and do that. And then I accidentally got into woodworking, and then I accidentally got into woodworking videos, and you see it build up and you see the potential. And at my day job, when I was a web developer, it was getting really frustrating. We were taking on clients that were outside of what our original business plan was, and it became very frustrating at work, and I was bringing that home. Unfortunately, don't bring work home, and I was just really frustrated. And Kelly's like, "Can we do the YouTube thing?" And we just sat down, and we figured. We listed all of our expenses. And when you do that, when you write down everything that you pay for every month, half of those things you don't need. Maybe even more than half of those things. And we're like, okay, this is what I'm making through AdSense and selling plans. That we're almost there. And she's like, I can help. We'll make this work. And I quit my job. And when you throw yourself into the fire, you figure out ways to make it work. At least in my situation. But when you're under that pressure, you're into it. That's all I think about all day. The time I get up to the time I go to bed, like what can I do to make myself and my business and our lives better and me happier. And I made the right decision because I don't want to ever work for anybody else ever again. So it was hard, and it wasn't hard at all.
Okay. For me, it was terrifying, completely terrifying. I like to plan things, if that's not obvious. I like to, do my best to get everything in a row and get it all figured out. I'm good with like rolling with punches and stuff, and if things don't go as planned, no big deal. But I like to think through things all the way if I can. And when we started talking about me quitting the job, it was kind of the same where like I'd started doing product development at the last job, and it was really cool, and then it just turned into like other stuff that wasn't interesting, and I wasn't necessary there, and that made me very like, ugh, like I'm not serving a purpose here. I'm not adding Bob to whatever we're doing. And so I was just kind of getting dissatisfied with that, and then this whole thing started happening, and it was super interesting, and so I started thinking through it really far in advance, like, how's this going to work over the next few months, like if I were to jump ship, and I was thinking just super hard about it and planning and doing all this stuff. And I remember one specific conversation we had. I was just like, well, I've thought through this all the way as much as I can, and what if it doesn't work? What if like I have all the planning in the world and I quit the job and it works great for 6 months, and then all of a sudden like it just doesn't work? That was my fear. And because, like I said, I have 4 kids, I have to provide. And Jenny was like, then you get another software job. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's actually not that big of a deal, right? And in fact, I was in Chicago one time, and I was talking to this guy that I did not know about this whole thing when I was going through it. And I told him what my job was at the time, and he said the exact same thing. He was like, you could walk outside and wave your resume around and get a job in software, which is kind of an exaggeration, but kind of not, too. And so, yeah, I mean, once I had somebody like kind of kick me out of the like long-term vision thing and like figuring out all the details and just being like, you'll be fine. I was like,
One step at a time.
It's still scary, but it's not impossible, right? And that made it a lot easier to have somebody, again, community, right? Yeah. My community, my local community, Jenny, my wife, and my good friend Josh are the 2 biggest catalysts in me doing this, because they brought in a perspective to this business that I could not have on my own. I was too focused on the work itself. So, right here.
Approximately how many videos did you have to make?
So the question, 2-part question, how many videos do we have to make before we found our creative voice, and how did that affect our branding at that point?
I feel like you 2 found your voice pretty darn quick.
I was
Or it took
making
me-
videos to sell concept ideas, so a lot of those videos involved some speeded up stuff. So I was already kind of dabbling in that for some of the videos that I used to pitch TV concepts. And so when I started making videos publicly, it was kind of an easy stretch. But this is sort of a well-known story where I decided not to use sound and voiceover because I just wanted to be sure that I was able to make them quickly. And then that turned into being my trademark shortly thereafter, really shortly thereafter. But I I wasn't like, okay, nobody on YouTube is making silent videos. That could become my thing. And that wasn't at all a conscious decision. And it also wasn't a conscious decision to do that because I wanted to make international videos. So it was just kind of happened by accident. So, they say luck. Is it, what is the term? Luck is like hard work. And
Never heard
something
that.
else.
That's pretty cool.
I don't know. Does anybody know that saying?
I think you just made it up.
The harder you work, the luckier you get. That'll work.
That's nice.
Good. So the harder I worked, the luckier I got. And yeah.
So for me, like creatively, I actually had been watching a bunch of Jimmy's videos when I was thinking about starting to making videos, and I knew him from TV beforehand, and I just really admired the videos. But I kept going like, man, I want more information. And so when I was talking earlier about having to justify my time in the shop, for me to be able to justify the work that I was going to put into these videos, it had to have value to other people. And so the way that I thought to do that was like, I'm going to take Jimmy's style of speeding things up and being able to get through an entire project, but I'm going to add an added value to it of me explaining what I'm doing in case it's not obvious, right? Maybe it is obvious. I don't know. But that was kind of the first, that was how
you
I...
were doing vlogs too, right? Like Laura did, right? You were doing,
Well,
online accompaniment?
Oh, yeah. I was writing a whole lot of stuff initially to go along with it, to be super detailed, like overly detailed. And so that was how I started creatively. As far as and then creatively since then, I've been trying to make incremental change. It was interesting to hear a couple other people talk about incremental change today, because that's the way I look at improvement. Is the best way is to do something different on every single video that may not be obvious to any of you that things have changed, but over time stuff has changed drastically. So that's my creative progression. As far as branding, I thought far too much about branding before I even made a video. Not far too much. Relative to a lot of other people, it's far too much. But I figured out all my branding. I had all my assets, because that's where I come from, and I just got all that stuff prepared so that I had everything I needed to go out in the state that I wanted to go out. It wasn't perfect, but like I had my logo, I had all my assets and everything, so that my first video looked exactly like I wanted it to look for the first one. So.
Before I answer that question, I want to say one of our most important episodes of the podcast is titled Getting Started. And sometimes you have to just get started before you can find your style and voice. And it might take, I'll use YouTube for an example, but you can apply this to anything. Like, you have to make a handful of YouTube videos first before you can figure out how you want to talk to the camera, if you want to talk to the camera, the type of angles you want to use, the music and whatever, and find your style. So that being said, just get started and you'll find your voice. For me, I've gone through like 3 major changes, and it's hurt my business, and it's also helped my business. So I used to do the weekly wrap-ups, and you asked how many videos. I think I made about 60 or 70 videos before I was able to quit my job. But that was me talking about other woodworkers in this little weekly show. And I got to a point, almost like the Casey Neistat thing, where I was like, I'm not challenged by this. I want to be challenged by making my own projects, my own videos. And so I gave that up. And then I just concentrated on making project videos. And then a lot of that was film everything, do a voiceover, maybe show my face at the beginning and at the end of the video. And that worked for a little bit. And then I was like, I'm not feeling it yet. I'm not finding my rhythm. And then I hired a cameraman who's now my cameraman on Tuesdays and an assistant. And he comes once a week, and we film a project. And so I don't do the voiceovers anymore. And I'm on camera the entire time. I'm talking. You're seeing the mistakes, which I think makes me seem a little bit more human than just watching, a 5-minute video.
The robot.
I'm a robot. And so every time I've made a huge change, there's always going to be people, I like the drunken woodworker better than make something.
Changed.
You changed. I'm unsubscribed.
Used to be 6 years old too.
Yeah. And I think like Bob's channel took off so fast and just blew up last year and this year. I think because he found his voice early on. Jimmy found his voice early on. So they're like at these crazy numbers. And I've been making videos about the same amount of length as Bob, but it took me longer to find my voice. But now that I'm finding my rhythm, I'm there. I think it's going to really just take off from here. You know, it's different for everybody. There is all these questions. There is no one solid answer. It's going to be different for everybody's situation.
I was going to say that exact same thing. I mean, it's the two of us is a perfect example of like entirely different approaches to most things, but there's still success in both of those. And there's no silver bullet to any of this stuff. None of it. No matter what, Facebook says or.
And what I consider success is different than what Bob considers success. Success isn't subscribers and views. For me,
Ben said something to that effect.
yeah. Success is happiness and finding fulfillment in your life, or making, if you want to impact other people's lives.
Yeah.
Mark, you had a question. You had your hand up.
I was just going to say, what's something in your life?
My plumbing.
Two things: shipping and bookkeeping.
That's right. Shipping, absolutely. Mailbag.
Let's repeat the question.
Well, go ahead.
He just asked what something that would make the business easier, something that we find difficult.
Someone that could stand in line at the post office, which I do get from time to time. I have some friends that volunteer and help, but post office and shipping is the biggest problem. I mean, I still owe people figurines that I have to ship to Europe, and they're in boxes. I got to go there and deal with the customs forms and all that stuff. So shipping is one, and for me right now, logistics, because Taylor and I are spending more time upstate because now we have the commitment of the chickens. So it's like, okay, if I'm going to be upstate for 4 days, what videos can I start or finish in that location? If I'm going to be downstate for 4 days, what can I start or finish there? So logistically, right now, I'm kind of in two places, and so for me, that makes video production slightly slower and a little bit more difficult. So, but that's my own personal problem.
Yeah, I hate shipping. Shipping is awful. That's why I signed all my books and then sent them to the publisher and said, "You ship them. I make less money, but they're shipping. I get my time back." And time management is the most difficult thing because nothing means more to me than my time. And so I don't know how to manage my time better, but I'm learning every week as we go.
I think for me it's probably space, and that sounds so
That's
just
the
silly
same problem.
to say, because I know like so many people do amazing work in tiny small spaces, and so I'm not complaining about the fact that I have a small shop, but the thing that blocks me on personally is that I want to do some longer term projects, not physically larger, and when you do longer term projects, in my case, I'm putting out a video every single week, which means I have to be able to store those projects when I'm not working on them.
I'm working on a canoe project. I mean, mentally, I'm working on a canoe project right here where there's all the room in the world.
Yeah.
When I make it, I got no room for it.
But you got to commit to it, right? You got to
Absolutely.
decide this is
I've
what I'm doing
built
until
canoe in my life for 6 months.
Yeah, you have to decide that's what you're doing until it's done. And so if I had some more space, then I could easily work on this for a couple of hours and then move on to the thing that's actually coming out this week, and I could have multiple things in progress, which I think would just make the whole turnover easier. Because right now, those two things that I was talking about earlier that I'm working on, one of them is Bondo and one of them is metalwork. And so I literally, in the same space, have to completely clean up, completely move everything into another room, switch over to a different project, and then clean up all that. Like, they're just different materials that won't work together. So,
Yes, sir. Jacob LaRocca in the back.
How do we-
say no cheeseburger for you. That's what I say.
the question was, how do you approach people who don't value the work that you do and they wouldn't buy it from you?
I just say you don't get it. And they don't get it. This is a funny story that me and David Welder always reference. Years ago when I was just sort of starting up my interior building, surviving business, and I was doing anything for anybody, a woman gave me a $400 down payment to build shelves in her office that she rented out desk space to. So it was like an early version of this sort of communal office where people could rent temporary space. So I was making her several things for $800. So I got half of the money up front to buy plywood to make into desktops, which would span across file cabinets. And she just kept saying, "Are they gonna look good? Are they gonna be good? Are they gonna be strong?" She just kept telling me that. And then like 3 days later, she's like, "But are they gonna be strong?" And I said, you know what? I'm going to give you your money back because you don't trust me. Why don't you just go to IKEA? No. I said, no. I've made the decision. I'm going to get. She's like, but I just checked and the check is cleared. I said, well, I'm going to write you a check from my bank account for $400 and it's going to clear. And if it doesn't clear, you can call the police on me. So I wrote her a check and I mailed it back to her. And that's basically, if people complain, they get no cheeseburger, and that's it.
No cheeseburger.
There's nothing I can add to that. That's yeah.
Yeah.
You pay for what I'm worth. I don't do much commission work, but I put a value on myself, and it's important that you put a value on yourself. You have a skill, you have knowledge that the buying party doesn't have, and it's important that you put value on yourself.
Every time you meet a client, you're going on your very first date with somebody that you're either going to go all the way to home base with, or you're going to just say, I don't even want to kiss this person. And it's exactly the same thing with every relationship you have. So, and a lot of times I say, I make this, if you have the opportunity to see them make decisions, and they're like, I make a joke, I'm like, when you sit down with them and you have lunch for a design consultation, and they can't even decide what salad to get, or what drink to get, that means they're not going to decide what color you're going to paint the thing that's sitting in your shop that we're overworking for. So when I see them like, what's this? I'm like, this person can't even, like, I'll be like, this cheeseburger right here, that's it. What's next? I got to get out of here. They get cut off.
No cheeseburger for you.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I
here
couldn't
now.
hear the question.
Yeah.
So there was
Chuck
a
is
running
here,
joke, and Bob contributed to this joke, by the way. So he asked, "Is Chuck a real person?" So
This cameraman.
okay,
Go
don't
ahead.
tell. Okay, this is just for the 200 people in the room. Don't
gonna
tell
edit this out?
anybody. I'm going to edit this out of the
Okay,
podcast.
all
All right. Chuck was made up, and I'm sorry. Chuck is Santa Claus.
How did you show his tattoo?
What's that?
How did you show us his tattoo?
Oh. Kyle Toth played into that. Oh my goodness. Oh, so there's so many stories here. There's layers of lies. Yeah, how do you keep it going? Kyle Toth, his buddy, has this tattoo on his this is amazing. Kyle Toth's buddy has Kyle's name tattooed on his butt. Right? That is friendship. Okay? Raise your
Or
hand if you
something
have
like
your
that.
friend's name tattooed on your butt and you're not married to that person. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, it started off as a joke. When I was working at my job, I was brainstorming with my coworker. He's full of good ideas, and he's like, "What if one of your videos, like, you just bring in this fake person?" And so I came up with some ideas where, like, okay, I'm gonna have a fake cameraman. Where I'm like, okay, Chuck, zoom in up on this thing, and then the camera doesn't zoom, but I pause for like 2 seconds, and I thought that's hilarious. And then I did it like another time. Bob, who we weren't really friends yet at the time, sends me an email, had like, "Hey, can I borrow your cameraman Chuck for one of my videos?" And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. And then Izzy did it, and in one of his videos, and then I started getting people like, not even asking me, but just using Chuck in their videos, and it blew up, and it was so weird and crazy. And Chuck isn't real, but don't tell anybody.
The focus bit, I died laughing the first time you did that because I knew it wasn't real. It was so obvious, but it was so funny. It was so good. Anyway, we got about 5 more minutes, so maybe like 2 more questions, and we got Mark.
Do you guys have any personality traits that hinder your making? And if so, how do you combat
Do we have any personality traits that hinder our making? I will say this. I don't know why these people keep watching my videos, but they hate my personality. They hate the like in your face, like stop yelling at me. Well, stop watching the videos. Like, nothing about my personality hinders what I do. I'm just having fun.
I think for me, if it hinders at all, it's just me overthinking things. I like to think through and try to pre-solve as many problems, which I think is good in the long term, but it slows down a lot of that, like, just get out there and start it. And the thing I'm building with the three weird things I was talking about earlier has been a really trying example for me, because like I knew that these had the components that I needed for this project, but I didn't really know how to get them out of those objects. And so it was a lot of, it still is, I'm not done with it. It's a lot of just like, I didn't plan this. I don't really know how this is going to work. I don't know how I'm going to fit these things together, but I'm like forcing myself to, to not pre-plan and to just get like hammer through it. So but that's one thing that slows me down some.
I got to think about this answer. My biggest problem is that I'm a hoarder, and I say that the first step is admitting your problem, but I really am a hoarder. I can't walk past certain materials and be like, okay, I'll take it. So, and I jokingly say, with my 40 acres upstate, I'm going to be that crazy, kooky, old, long, white, bearded man with suspenders on that meets the pickers at the front door and yells at them, living on a dilapidated bus. I really think that that's my future.
That's quite a plan.
With an overgrown, that's my plan. No, I'm a hoarder and I don't have enough room in my workshop, and that's because I'm a hoarder, and because I spend so much time managing my junk, and that's why I'm giving a lot of stuff away today after the show. Yes, sir. Coolest workshop I've been in and what made it cool. To me, every workshop with like a high ceiling is cool. Where I can go like this and not touch something, or I could like swing a sheet of plywood and not break a lamp or a light bulb. I don't know. What is the coolest workshop I've been in? I guess the coolest workshop I probably have been in is the workshop, which I don't think it exists anymore because it's been disbanded, is where Nick Offerman built the canoe and I videotaped it. Because right outside the window was the Statue of Liberty. Nick rented that space, and it was in Red Hook, Brooklyn. And it was a series of 10 stalls, and each stall was about as big as the space created by 4 of these posts. It was 10 of those stalls, so everybody got that much space, and with a hallway down the middle. It was kind of like set up like a horse barn, but that just happened to be how the layout of the pillars. Building was built during the Civil War era in Red Hook, Brooklyn, so it had all that history behind it, and you had this collaboration of great woodworkers with this huge hallway down the middle for them as a common space. And the owner of that rental, the guy who shouldered that lease, had the biggest, coolest space. And when he met Nick wasn't Ron Swanson at the time, but Nick had a little bit of extra money, and he said, what space can I build a canoe? And he goes, you know what, I like this project. Why don't you build it in my space, because I'm not working over the next 6 months. He was doing something else. So it was actually the owner's space. So that's a long question, but a long answer. But that was where we built that.
I actually haven't really been in that many different shops, but 2 really stick out. One is my granddad's shop, and I think it's amazing just because of nostalgia and just like growing up seeing him work. And one thing that was really awesome about him, he fit everything to his needs. So it wasn't like well, there's a shop and I'll just I'll work around the shop. He worked his shop and his house around him, which I think is really cool. And that's what we should do, right? We should own our space and own our stuff and use it, bend it to our will. The other one is David and I got to go to Pier 9, the Autodesk place, Instructable's office. One of those. They're the same company. In San Francisco. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, like a room.
I've seen videos of it. My friend visited there, so his
It's like 5x10 water jet tables and like these CNCs that several of us could climb into. And I mean, it's just crazy, but.
I am way more inspired by artists than I am woodworkers, and I think the coolest shop, which is actually an art studio, is probably my friend Josh. It's in the attic of his garage, and he paints and does graffiti art, and it's just covered, like there's just all his art is just piled up against the wall, and I'm walking in there, and it's so cool. There's these sculptures that he's working on, that he's worked on in the past that he can't sell, but to me they're awesome. And so all his art is all over this garage, and it was just really inspiring. And my dream space is having something where I walk into and I feel inspired and I want to work, and I don't want there to. I'm the opposite of Jimmy when it comes to, like, Jimmy has all his stuff laid out, I'm thrown about.
Piled out.
Piled out, yeah.
And I like I like there to be negative space. I like for things to have room to breathe and live. And so my dream place is to have a big open space, carpeted. I want to have a carpeted wood shop because back problems and feet problems and stuff. And then I want there to be artwork on the wall, and I want to go down in there, and I just want to feel inspired and feel like working.
Let's do like one more.
One more.
Make it good.
Okay, there's 2 people right there. 2 more.
All right.
Josh, you're first.
Doesn't have to be that good.
Your favorite and your least favorite project and why?
Favorite and least favorite project and why? Good.
I always try to make my current project, and this is the typical answer, I know, but I always want my current project to be my favorite project because that means I am fully into it. So the hot dog table that I'm working on right now, my favorite project. Last week's favorite project was the hall table that turned into a bench. Least favorite project, I don't know that I have an answer for. The wiener dog tie rack. That thing was ridiculous.
I just want to point out that you were talking about a hot dog table just a second ago. So, it's not that far off.
Yeah.
For me, let's see, favorite project is probably The Secret Door, because that was like fulfilling a childhood of a friend of mine that really wanted it. So that was great. It was awesome to be able to like do that for him and for his son, who still doesn't know about it, which is super cool. So cool. My least favorite, I have a bunch. I don't know, like maybe the first 20. Can I say that? Only because not necessarily the projects. A lot of the projects I'm not really happy with, but when I look back at the videos and the presentation of the project, that's the thing that I'm like, I missed it. Even if I liked the thing, like I missed presenting it in the way that it should have been presented. So,
Thinking in terms of a much grander scale, my favorite project is my YouTube accomplishment and my 300 plus videos that I've built. And lately with my Content ID, I'm going back and reviewing every single video I ever made and getting to see them with somebody else's logo on them. It's wonderful. And so that just reminds me of the accomplishment I've achieved in the last 3-5 years. And in that same venue, my most regrettable TV video project is a show called Against the Grain with Jimmy Diresta, which I looked really good because I was super skinny, but the show was horrible. So, no one ever even seen it. It sucks.
I'm going to look it up now, though, for sure.
Against the Grain with Jimmy Diresta.
Everybody
it is a
get out your
show.
phones.
The producer said, we want a show just like the one you did with your brother, but we don't want your brother to be in it.
Oh.
Exactly what they said to me.
Wow.
Trolls.
All right, last one. Oh, what?
You can go. I have something for the
Oh, my wife has one. She'll be the last one. So, yeah. The question was, Bob, am I ever going to write a book? Why has that been asked to me like 4 times in the last... I have written a part of a book, but I don't know if I'll ever release it or not. No, it's not fan fiction. No, I don't know if I'll ever finish it.
Books you're not going to get rich off of writing books.
I hated writing that book, and when anybody comes up to me and shows it to me, I'm like, wow, you really like this thing? It was so difficult. It was like writing the longest, most complicated book report of my life about a book that didn't exist. I hate writing emails, and I hate writing books even worse. I get like 5 opportunities to write books, I just ignored them. But his book is beautiful. I mean that.
I just released a book a couple weeks ago. I do
His
have them here
second
for
book.
sale. My
Let's point
second
that out.
book. I
Second
have both
book.
books here if you want to buy one. Thank you. So I do make a little bit of money off of writing a book, but the truth is, if I can find a sponsor for a video, I'll make more money in
A week.
in a week than it takes, the 6-8 weeks it takes to write a book.
I learned the process of writing a book is like walking up Mount Everest backwards for free.
But it's
Wow.
there's the challenge of writing the book, and we're always trying to challenge ourselves. And when I finish each book, it feels like it's such a good feeling because I did this thing that was out of my comfort zone. And I can actually, my parents don't completely understand what I do for a living. They think I'm a woodworker. I'm not a woodworker. I make YouTube videos. But when I show them this book, they think I'm famous.
And the photography is
Oh,
incredible,
nice.
and the
Yeah.
graphics incredible, and it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Unlike mine.
But this book makes me feel good because it makes me feel like a real woodworker.
Like validates.
It
having a
validates what I
physical
do.
thing.
Yeah.
So just if anybody out there is dyslexic, has horrible reading comprehension, and doesn't know how to spell a word, don't write a book.
But you can, right? I mean, you can.
I guess you can.
All right, we have
Tell it all to Siri.
we just have to read it?
Yeah, because I'm getting that.
Okay. All right. Oh. Okay. How many of you in this room, this is not, I'm reading this for people who can't see me. I'm reading it from someone else. How many of you in this room got started or inspired to create by one of these makers who have been on the stage today? Show of hands.
Ooh. Thank
Wow. Oh, I don't know if I want that pressure.
you. Thank you, guys.
How many
Thank
people have
you.
quit their jobs? Wow,
Right on.
that's crazy.
That's not my fault. That is not my fault.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. That's great. Thank you, Jimmy. I'd like to say thank you to these two guys because they make it easy for me to be involved. They edit, they set up schedules, they set this up, they do all the hard work, and I'm like the old man that they don't tell me anything. They're like, don't tell them, don't let them be worried, it doesn't matter. So thank you to you guys for making it easy for me. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
I was hoping to beat you to that because I wanted to thank you guys because every week for an hour and a half I get to hang out with Jimmy Diresta and Bob Clagett. How cool is that, right? And they, even though I don't do exactly what they do and I don't do what all the other podcasters do, everybody has something separate. I'm inspired by everybody because everybody does that unique thing and they have their own voice and their own style, and that inspires me so much. And there's about 10 different YouTubers where I actually have alerts set up on my phone when they release a video, and I get excited for it. And you two are definitely on
Thank you
there.
very
So
much.
Likewise.
I love it.
Awesome. That's it. I think we're done for this week. I want to thank everybody who's here and everybody who's listening for helping us get to 100 episodes, and here's to 100 more.
Thank you.
Yes. We'll keep making the show as long as you guys keep listening. Huge thanks to everybody else who's been on stage today.
Thank you, guys.
The other podcast, to everybody who's helped us set up, our spouses and parents and friends and Matt and Converse and
A lot of people.
yeah. This was supposed to be like literally the three of us getting together somewhere to record at a table, not this. So that's how it started out, and it just kind of like fell down a hill and turned into what it is now.
I think we have to do this again next year.
I think we might. Yeah.
What
So
is the
anyway,
date?
big thank you to everybody who's been a part of it, everybody who's here, everybody who's listening. You're awesome, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Woo! Whoop, whoop. Thank you. I love you.